Hello all, welcome to this video presentation on the topic film genres. So you are already familiar with the concept of genres in literature. You are studying about it. In literature there are different literary genres like novels, dramas, poetry and the different subgenres coming to novels. Uh, Based on the style and the content, there are further subdivisions in literature. So you are already familiar with that. So coming back to films, what is a film genre and what is the relation or the differences and similarities between film genre and this literary genre? So similarities between these two ideas, a lot of similarities are there. Basically, the basic idea of genres remains same in both film and literature. The differences are there because a film is a different medium altogether. So that differences remain, but the basic idea or the concept of genre remains the same here. So what is a film genre? It is a motion picture category. So it's a basic idea is that it's a category and it is based on similarities either in the narrative elements or the emotional response. So the narrative elements, the plot, structure, how the story is told, these thing remains the same for a particular genre of movies. And the next is the emotional response a particular genre create in the audience. Just take the example of an action movie. That what is the emotional response that an action movie creates in the mind or mind of the spectator? What is the emotional response a drama movie or in an emotional drama movie create in the mind of in the mind of a spectator? So as I already suggested, most theories in film genre are borrowed from literary criticism, and we uh, discuss or study about different literary genre. As I mentioned earlier, the idea remains the same, but the difference is because of the peculiarity of the film medium. We are basically defining film genre or literary genre on the basis of certain similarities. So, a particular film genre, there are many identifiable traits of a particular film genre throughout the different forms of it. Take the example of a particular film genre, X. In this particular genre X, we see a lot of similar ideas which are repeated all through. If we check or inspect story wise, the content, the subject matter, the structures, and the themes these movies contain are more or less the same. For example, an action movie, the content of an action movie, the subject matter, the structure remains the same, and sometimes the period in which the movie is set, again the plot, the settings, repetition of characters. To tell you an example, just take the example of Satyanandikad or the movies of Malayalam movies of 80s and 90s. We see a lot of characters which are stock character. We can see a tea shop or the people like common village people, barbers or fish vendors or shopkeepers. These are some common character. The role of an ammavan in a family. These are some common characters that are repeated in a certain type of movies. Or the situation, some repeated situation, confusion. Take the example of some older movies of Priyadarshan. The confusion gets confounded idea. Whole people are coming and a lot of things happening. Confusion. Certain motives are repeated in certain genres of movie. For example, repetition of an idea or, or an object which are repeated in certain movies or situations. So in certain genres, certain motives are there. The visual style, certain genres has got a very typical or identifiable visual patterns. uh, we'll talk about film noir later. So the styles is their visual style, narrative style, and some films or genres has got a same set of stars, or a particular actor is associated to a particular genre. For example, in Malayalam star Jayan, so he was associated with an macho kind of movies. So again, actors sometimes play uh, as a ingredient of a genre movie. To sum up, a particular genre, which it will have a certain common features all through. It may be in the story, it may be in the visual treatment, it may be in the characters and actors, and even in the setting or the backdrop where the film is being shot. So these all ideas contribute the concept of a particular genre. Okay, now let's discuss some very common film genres or the popular film genres that we see in world cinema or India or in other countries in general. So these are the very common film genres that we see. Action films, and many of the genres we discuss here are quite familiar to you. It is not that you haven't seen a movie of a particular genre. Actually, you have seen all the most of the movies or the most types of genres in your life. You have seen it, but here we are just trying to categorize it. So it will be very easy for you. Just need to think and try to categorize in your mind various films you have seen and how they will fit into different genres. So action films, it's very clear. Action films are a particular genre. Adventure films, comedy, crime films, drama, dramatic films, melodramas and all that. Then epic movies that are made on a large canvas or big canvas, and which has got a very sweeping backdrop where the story is being told. And then horror films, it's clear. Musicals, where music is given for very importance. Normally Indian movies, every genre, irrespective of its nature, it will contain song and music. But in many other countries, I hope you have noticed, many countries, English cinemas and other foreign language cinema, they don't have um, songs in between their cinema. They have a separate category as musicals, but here uh, we use music all across all the film genre formats. Science fiction, I hope you have seen movies related to that. War films, where war is put as a very important backdrop of the story. Then westerns. Western is a typical Wild West alpha male rustic character, or village character oriented cinema, um, which is a peculiarity of Hollywood and Italian movie styles. And our filmmakers have copied this particular style. So it's a uh, Wild West macho type cinema. So these are, in general, very important primary film genres. Now let's discuss each primary genre in detail. Actually, each genre is further subdivided into subgenres. Actually, action films, just take the example of action films. Action films are not just action films, there are many different types of action film. And these different types of action films uh, belong to the genre of action, and they are further subdivided into subgenres. And every genre described, primary genre that we described just now, are further subdivided into different sections. So let's discuss different primary genres and their subdivisions. Subgenres have their different subject matter from their primary genre structure. They might have a different style. If you take the example of an action genre, the subgenres of action genre might have a different style about it, different styles, formulas, the characters, the relation, how the plot is developed will be based on different type of formulas. Two hero, three hero. There are many narrative formulas. Then iconography, the icons, the backdrop, how where the action or the movie is set. These all change. So all these aspects contribute to or further develop into variety and complicated subgenres. Okay, so if you take action movies, so what is an action? What is the peculiarity of an action movie? Just think about an action movie or any action movie from Bollywood or a Hollywood. So these elements will be there. It will be a big budget movie. The characters, the action or the acting will be full of energy. Will get a lot of spectacular action sequence, physical action, the hero jumping from buildings and flying big planes, cars, and driving fast cars, chase sequences, adrenaline pumping chase sequences, possibly rescue operation and all that, battle, fight, escaping from villain and their company, race against time, crisis. So and the speed of action films will be something different. It will be a very fast paced movie. You just remember about any action movie that you have seen. So it pays how the editing in the movie, it will be fast paced. So these are some common features of action movies. So I think that's clear for you. So if we come to subgenres, so these elements are incorporated into different subgenres differently. So the first subgenre that we are looking here is spy action movie. So the idea is very clear. You have seen movies. The example I'm citing here is James Bond, a typical spy movie. So James Bond is a character who flies around places. He is doing spy work, and this spy James Bond spy movies are more action oriented. A lot of things, as mentioned earlier, high action, a lot of chase sequence, physical stunt, all these things are there. Highly stylized movies are as well. These James Bond movies, Mission Impossible. Mission Impossible is a spy movie franchise. Tom Cruise um, does the role of Agent Ethan Hawke. That's one type, James Bond movies and Mission Impossible series. Then in one particular genre, there will be mixing of other genres as well. For example, take the case of this Johnny English Reborn. You might have seen the movie. So it's a spy movie, but it is infused with comedy. So it's a comic spy movie. So there it's a mixing of genres are there. In India also we have seen Indian Bollywood films. We see spy movies as well. Recently there were movies like D.A.T.A, Tiger, I think Salman Khan's movie, and Raw. It's a movie. I think Madras Cafe. It's a movie recently released. And so basically the idea is of spy who does some work for his country, spy work for his country, and the action follows that particular criteria. Next is espionage movies. So it's again a little bit different. Actually, basically espionage and spy movies are the same, but here the difference is the spy here will be working undercover, especially in an enemy country, and how he deals with his undercover nature, and how he deals with his job there. These are represented in espionage movies or described or presented in espionage movies. Patriot Games, and then Argo is a movie where it's about evacuation of people, American citizens from Iran. I think it's a movie that won the Oscars. In Bollywood also these kind of movies are there. Agent Vinod, it's a movie that I remember. D.A.T.A. That movie was in focus recently because it was a movie. It's a Bollywood movie. It was in that movie, Irfan Khan and Rishi Kapoor both acted together. Both of these actors passed away recently. The next is political thrillers. So it's quite clear from its title itself. Uh, it has the story has got political undertones. It basically about a political struggle which includes corruption, many other things like terrorism, infiltration, all these kind of stuff. So political films. Examples. So one example is there in the picture, and in coming to Bollywood, there are many political movies in Bollywood. Sarkar is a very famous movie. Rajniti is a movie by Prakash Shah. Ganga Jal, again another movie by Prakash Shah. People Live. People Live was once India's official entry to the Oscars for best foreign language film. And in coming to Malayalam, I think you have seen movies like Lucifer. These elements are there: political power struggle, and all left, right, left. One movie is going to be released soon. It is about where Mammootty plays the role of a chief minister. One, I think that movie will be a political thriller as well. And movies like Patram. I think Patram is written by Shajik, not Shajik. What is his name? Yes, Renji Panikar. He wrote that movie. So these movies are examples of political. Then the other type is martial art films. It's clear you might have seen the kung fu movies, martial art films, where the action is based on what particular martial art form. Kung fu is there, Jet Li, Jackie Chan, and this movie is directed by Ang Lee. It's a very famous movie. It's not only about kung fu. There are other martial art films as well. For example, from Indonesia, there's Pentok Silat, a martial art form of Indonesia. The movies like Raid series, Raid 1 and 2, it's made it's coming from Indonesia. It's very famous movies. And Muay Thai, it's a martial art form, and the movie is based on Muay Thai. Tony Jaa's Ong Bak series. So these movies are action oriented. It's not just action oriented, but it is based on one particular type of martial arts. So I hope it's clear. Then the next is Race Against Time movies. I think one example, a clear example I would like to cite is Traffic. Traffic is not the typical Race Against Time movie, but in that Malayalam movie Traffic, one thing is to be done. That heart need to be sent to a hospital, and you have got this much time, and you have to do all the things within the limit of that time. So that's a Race Against Time movie. And the example is here Speed. It's a movie in which Keanu Reeves star. It's about a bus going, and the bus has been bombed, and if the bus speed is reduced below 50 kilometer per hour, the bus will explode, and how the hero is working to save the people in the bus. That's the plot of the cinema. So here it's against the time. The hero is, and the action is placed against the constraint of time. I think the climax of Vandanam, if you remember, it is based on that particular idea. Next primary genre that we are discussing is adventure. So you have seen adventure movies, and you know the content or the style of adventure movies. Adventure movies are stories which are exciting, which showcase different landscapes, a very exotic land, very beautiful. Majority of the cases, action movies and adventure movies are mixed together. So, if we divide adventure genre into subgenres, we get the first segment or first type, swashbuckler adventure movies. So the idea is simple here. In this type of movies, the character is a chivalric young man, very honest and very eager to help people. Such a character. You in history you have studied about chivalric romances. The chivalric knight type of a guy. So sword fighting, the wielding of sword, bows and arrows, these weapons are the weapons of the hero, and most of the times, or in many cases, the hero carries an enigma around him. He is a masked character who travels in horseback, trying to help people. Typical damsel in distress situation. The heroine is in problem. Hero comes and saves the heroine. There are many movies of this type. Pirates of the Caribbean. Just think about Jack Sparrow's character, the sword fighting, how his personality is, how he appears, and even in other movie languages. In Malayalam, Kayankulam Kuchumi is such a character. Many movies of M G Ramachandran, Tamil movies, he has done these type of roles. Swashbuckling, sword wielding, handsome youth. Even famous Malayalam movie Yodha, in which Mohanlal plays such a character who come to save people in a country. So there is swashbuckling adventure subgenre. Then the next is historical films. Historical adventure is presented along with the history. Lawrence of Arabia is an example of such movie. We'll discuss about it further later. Then expedition films. Expedition films is a typical adventure film subgenre. So the hero goes for an expedition to an unknown land to recollect, to attract your attention. With an example, you might have seen the movie Lord Livingston. It's a movie directed by Anil Radhakrishnan Menon. It was not a successful movie, but it was a first of its kind attempt in Malayalam cinema in an adventure subgenre. That is in Malayalam, and in Hollywood there are many famous adventure expedition movies. Into the Wild, it's a famous movie. Motorcycle Diaries. I think that movie is very famous. It's based on Che Guevara's motorcycle diaries. It's a book. That book describes Che Guevara's and his friends Alberto's expedition into the heart of South America. 70 Years in Tibet. This is a film. The central character is Brad Pitt. He is a mountaineer, and his experience in Tibet with Dalai Lama is described in that movie. The treasure hunt, an adventure movies. Treasure hunt is an adventure subgenre. Treasure hunt movies. National Treasure. I think most of you probably have seen it. In Star Movies and HBO, these films appear every time, many times. Adventure, treasure hunting. They are searching for a treasure. They encounter different riddles, conflicting situation, problematic situation. How they overcome that, and finally they find the treasure. That's how it goes. Then the next is about the treasure hunts. We just discussed treasure hunts. The historical epics. I think we missed that previously. Just forgot to mention that historical epic and historical adventure. So it's a mix of history and adventure. The characters who are mentioned in history, and they are not outright historical movies. The director or the writer uses their creative imagination and adapt the story to suit movies. To cite some examples, the writer has taken liberties to in a historical adventure a character. as I mentioned, a historical character is added to the situation of adventure. William Wallace Braveheart, then Lawrence of Arabia. Lawrence is a historical character. His expeditions into Arabian deserts are discussed in that movie. So like, the director takes liberties in describing, so deviating from actual history. And now a famous movie is going to come in Malayalam, Kunyali Marakkar. I think Kunyali Marakkar, as you know, is a historical character. Obviously, the director will take liberties with this character. Kunyali Marakkar, I think the director will not stick to strict history, but develop the character to suit the taste of the audience and the story of the movie. Padmavat, Parshiraja, these are some historical films. It adds, it has been which has been added a trace of adventure in it. The last in this category, adventure subgenre, is disaster movies. So disaster movies are a specialty of Hollywood. A lot of disaster movies are made and they are very famous. I think the definition is clear. It's about a history. Sorry, it's about a disaster that happened. 2012, say disaster movie released earlier. Armageddon, The Day After Tomorrow. Uh, Medical survivor thrillers are also classified into this section. They are repeated again in another category. We'll see that. So, AP movies like Contagion, and Virus, The Outbreak, The Flu. These are movies that they were very popular recently. These movies are disaster movies. Okay, that's an subsection of adventure. And the classic example of disaster movies, Titanic. So it's about the disastrous sinking of Titanic. The movie Titanic is again an example of the combination of different subgenres and primary genres. Titanic is a historic drama movie. It's a historical movie. It is drama. It has emotion, romance, and finally, there's a disastrous element to it. So these are the adventures. Adventure is the primary category. These films comes under the subcategory of adventure movies. The next genre is comedy, and we are quite familiar with the content of comedy movies, and we all like such movies. If we divide comedies into further subdivisions or subgenres, slapstick spoofs, parodies, romantic comedies, black comedies. So here, slapstick comedies are a genre, subgenre of comedy movies. So it's slapstick comedy are they focus on physical comedy, a man walking or running and falling down. You use your body to do or to evoke laughter, mistakes that are committed by the characters, and they also predominantly uses the dialogue delivery between the characters in order to create laughter. Early time in the early Hollywood period, the classical Hollywood period, Charlie Chaplin's movies are a very good example of this slapstick humor. You remember the way Charlie Chaplin walked, talked, the tram character of Charlie Chaplin, where he used his body to evoke laughter. And Buster Keaton, Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, they were the masters of this slapstick humor. And in the development of film, there were a lot of slapstick humor that came in between. And coming to Malayalam, there are many slapstick movies that the reference of which will definitely strike a bell in your head. C.A.D. Musa, that how the comedy is created, running, falling down, burning, the whole building is burning, these kind of things. And Parakkandaliga, C.A.D. Musa and Parakkandaliga are two good examples of slapstick humor in Malayalam movies. And in Parakkandaliga movie, there is a particular sequence in the house of Cochin Ganifa's character. Normally, it's like a Tom and Jerry type of slapstick humor, and that also, they use physical actions to create laughter. And early movies of Priyadarshan, Aram Plasaram, Kinnaram, Mala Peyunnu, Madallam Kottunnu, these movies they use slapstick humor or physical humor of character to great effect. The next subcategory is they are taken together here, spoofs and parodies. So spoofs and parodies are comic reworking of a single film or a series of films in a series of scenes in other films. I will tell an example, so it will be very clear for you. In Malayalam, there recently, 2 years back, a movie was released by the name Chirakodinja Kinavugal. So it was presented as the first spoof movie in Malayalam. So in that movie, many scenes are spoofed in that movie. Scenes from different situations, the characters from other movies, they are recreated in a comical manner. So Chirakodinja Kinavugal was different scenes of different movies are spoofed together. Then there was a movie that released Meet the Spartans. So it was a Hollywood movie. So actually that movie was a reworking of the famous action movie 300. 300 is a movie by Zack Snyder, and the whole movie is spoofed or parodied in the Meet the Spartans movie. And Johnny English movie series, Johnny English Reborn, you might have seen the movie. Actually, in that movie, the whole action spy genre is parodied. So here, three movies they parody three sections. Chirakodinja Kinavugal, certain scenes, Meet the Spartans, one whole movie together. Johnny English Reborn series, they spoof the whole genre together. So spoof movies and parody movies. Then the next category is romantic comedy. So it's a very common, very popular romantic comedy, a happy ending movie with romance, two character, boy and girl, they fall in love, their problems, the humor, the friends, the comedy, the laughter, and the problems they undergo. Finally, everyone lived ever happily ever after. So that's such type of comedy, romantic comedy. So I'm not citing example. You can think as many examples of romantic comedy films that you have seen. Okay, then black comedy is the next category. Black comedy is a comic approach to a topic that is very serious. For example, death, violence, sexuality, politics or corruption, unemployment. So these are very grim topics, and a comical approach in a very serious comical approach to a serious topic. Many movies in Malayalam, Chindavishta Shamala is a movie that mocked or criticized religion as such. In Malayalam, Trivandrum Lodge is such a movie which carries black humor elements. Fargo, it's a famous movie by Coen brothers. Pulp Fiction, those who are lovers of Hollywood movies or have the habit of seeing movies regularly, they might have seen the movie Pulp Fiction. It is by Quentin Tarantino. Again, elements of black humor is meticulously infused in these movies. Fargo and Pulp Fiction are very good examples of black humor. So these are, and the last one is the satirical movie. The satirizing a situation or an event or a state of affairs. Classic satirical movies are there in Malayalam. Just take the example of the movie Sandesham, or many of the movies by Srinivasan. They are satirical in nature. Sandesham is a very classic example of satirizing the existing political scenario in Kerala. Again, that's an example. And there are many comic movies, which criticize in a very light-hearted manner existing situation, politics, people, things, not things but people in that subgenre. So So these are some important subgenres of humor or comic primary genre. Comedy are subdivided into these sections.